Much Tyler. Well, controversy is intensifying tonight as opposition officials are criticizing government following their trip to Bermuda last week. This as they allege that the Davis administration is not being upfront with the Bahamian public. Jose Etienne has more in this report.
Insofar as the cost of the Bermuda trip, that cost was covered by the Progressive Civil Party, and all questions pertaining to that trip could be deferred to the organization.
Communications Director in the Office of the Prime Minister, Latre Ramming, making this revelation to reporters last week as Prime Minister Philip Davis led a delegation of cabinet ministers and PLP officials to Bermuda several days ago. However, Chairman of the PLP, Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell, seems to be singing a different tune. According to a statement released last week, Mitchell argues that, quote, the standard procedure is for most, if not all, flights of the Prime Minister to be arranged through the Office of the Prime Minister, end quote. However, opposition leader Michael Pintard is arguing that both government officials are seemingly not on the same page.
Clearly, the chairman of the PLP says that this was a government, in other words, a state-driven trip. The Office of the Prime Minister suggests something else. Well, if it was a state-driven trip, the government has to be extremely careful of its continued commingling of governance with private political matters.
Pintard went on to note that officials must come clean as it relates to this trip.
They ought to lay on the table the invoices for this particular trip to show exactly who paid for it. Because if it was a party event paid for by the party, is the party also paying for the civil servants that was on that trip? And if so, why? So this is a very messy situation.
Last week, Wednesday, Prime Minister Davis, cabinet ministers, and PLP officials went to Bermuda to attend the Progressive Labour Party's 57th Annual Delegates Conference. But the opposition leader argues that government has yet to reveal to the public the objective of the trip.
We are unclear on what the ultimate objectives of this trip was. Was it for government officials to engage in conversations with our counterparts in Bermuda on matters that affect whether it's transport, housing, climate, smart decisions, et cetera, et cetera? We are unclear. Or was this a political organization working with its counterpart, its sister party in Bermuda?
But Mitchell defends that, quote, it was a standard foreign affairs goodwill trip, not a political trip, end quote. He went on to note in the statement that Davis met with Bermuda's leader and cabinet ministers and discussed housing, transport, and both countries' relationship within CARICOM. Now, it was also revealed, according to a local daily, that the flight was grounded in Bermuda. That report went on to note that the delegation traveled with Western Air.
Did they clear all of the protocols relative to safety and the aviation protocols in the Bahamas? Did they clear it internationally? Did they clear it in Bermuda? Were they always in contact with one of these agencies as they traveled? And was there any point at which they were in danger?
However, Mitchell maintains that this was a result of an air traffic control requirement that had to be fulfilled. Jose Etienne, Eyewitness News.